Hello everybody. So what a stunning reversal for strategy today. Strongly outperformed Bitcoin. We've been waiting for this day for a while. We've had so many ways where it underperformed relative to what the performance should be. As I always say, performance or strategy should be 1.5x Bitcoin, 1.5x Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was down 6%. Strategy should have closed down 9%. But it didn't do that. And it's continuing to run in after hours, by the way, up 1.6% in after hours, while IBIT is only up 0.25% in after hours. It's continuing to run. The delta from the bottom of the day where we reach 155 to 175 now in after hours, like almost. It's almost. I mean, it's almost a $20 delta between the bottom and how much we rebounded. We essentially rebounded $20 from peak fear in the middle of the day, and we're only down 1.5% on a day where Bitcoin is down 6%. So this is outstanding performance. And this is why the NAV is going back up at 0.91. If you remember, not too long ago, we were in 0.86, 0.85 territory, depending on how you calculate. So it's going back up. The NAV is going back up. We're going to go back to a premium on a basic NAV possibly soon. At least I'm really, really hoping so. Of course, as we know from the last presentation this morning, from Strategy's last presentation this morning, we know they use enterprise value EV as their gauge of whether issuing common stock is accretive or not. So I guess we should all need to stop using basic and we should use what Strategy uses, because that's going to help us understand the stock much more. Bitcoin slowly bouncing back just a tad, barely, right? Barely. After we were in the 83s at one point in the day, we are bouncing slightly back. We will take it. But if you remember, was it 36 hours ago? We were at 93 36 hours ago. So unfortunately, Strategy can't do well if Bitcoin doesn't do well. Anyways, the dump of today, what can we explain it by? Well, I would argue we can explain it by peak negativity. Peak negativity on X today. So it's just insane. It got insane in the middle of the day. Retail traders, I think, took it way too far, way too much engagement farming, way too many big words, all talk, no substance, many big words like, oh, it's a Ponzi, oh, it's a margin call, oh, it's a scam, calling out Strategy on these FUD items that I've debunked so many times on this channel, so many times. He himself, for example, take the margin call thing, he himself said that the BTC base level that they introduced is they're going to be underwater on their Bitcoin if Bitcoin goes under 10,400, right? And he said even if it did come to that, there would be no issue, there would be no margin call, because most of the debt is now perpetual. Perpetual debt means it never comes due. So it's not mark-to-market debt. But, you got to dig a little more into the stock, and people are like, no, margin call, oh, he's going to lead to the next crypto winter, etc. Well, guess what? Well, it sure feels like a crypto winter right now. Anyways, MSTR on the back end keeps improving the value proposition. This was the right move to do. They raised cash, sitting in cash, and as a commenter on the channel said, likely earning 3 to 4% in treasuries, because it's not like you can park 1.44 billion at a bank. So it's likely in treasuries somewhere. They raised cash. It was accretive. They made $207 million. And that cash is just going to sit there as a buffer for the dividend. They have 1.75 years, 1 year and 9 months worth of cash. That is enough to cover the $700 million of dividend that they have to outlay on a yearly run rate basis. They raised that money. So I think it's 800 million, by the way, not 700, no, 800 million. They raised that money sitting on the balance sheet. And that money is just going to be there for a rainy day. And I love the analogy of, well, he uses a spaceship because it's crypto, but I think a car analogy would be an even better analogy. A car runs on oil, but it still has a battery. it still has a battery, and that battery has electricity. And electricity, of course, is needed for the engine to start. And you really don't care about having a high-performance battery in the summer. In the summer, it's not really important to have a high-performance battery. When Bitcoin was peaking last November, that was not important to have $1 billion in cash because we were trading at 3x MNAV. People were gobbling up the shares. People were buying anything Saylor did. The market was buying. It was the summer. In the summer, you don't need a battery of cash. Just like a car, you can have an old battery. You're going to start the car in the summer. But try to start a car with a bad battery with a weak battery in the winter. Try to start your car when your battery is not high quality in the winter, right? Have you ever been to the north of the USA, trying to start a car when it's minus 10 degrees outside? You need to have a fully charged, oversized battery for the engine to run in the winter. This is my analogy I'm choosing. He needs a battery for the Bitcoin engine to start if we are actually headed in a crypto winter, which I don't think we are, but we have to look at the facts. Bitcoin's not doing well. That's the facts. It's not doing well. 84,000, 85,000, Bitcoin's not doing well. So he sees the facts as well. That's why he removed the guidance. He reduced the guidance. And, analysts still have a target above 150 at year end. All of these analysts also probably need to change their guidance because I don't think we're getting to 150K by year end 2025 on Bitcoin. I really don't. So anyways, let's talk briefly about the preferreds. And of course, this 1.4 billion of cash is a big deal for the preferreds because the preferred now have, 1.75 years. The preferreds now have 1 year and 9 months of cash buffer, of cash saved to pay those dividends. So those dividends in the short term got much safer. And actually, if you look at the performance of the preferred, I'm quite happy. Stretch was roughly flat on the day. Strife was down slightly, 2%. Stride was flat on the day. And you had, of course, Strike, which was a little more down because Strike has a call option for strategy in it. Overall, the preferreds have been doing much better than the stock recently. And 96, pretty impressive, pretty stable for the stablecoin of Saylor. That Stretch is on 96. And moving on Stretch, of course, that's the overdevelopment of today. That kind of went unnoticed because people screamed when they saw the big drop, 11% drop midday in strategy. People were not focusing on the underlying story. But the underlying story today, of course, was announced. The rise in the dividend of Stretch. Stretch is now paying 10.75%, so 25 basis point extra. But here's another thing. CME Fed Watch tool is telling us 87% odds of a 25% rate cut, 25 basis point rate cut. This is Kalshi. Kalshi is telling us 89%. Seems like the December rate cut is in the bag. So that means that in 9 short days, this stock Stretch will be yielding a whole 0.5% more relative to the risk-free rate. But 0.5% more than what it was yesterday, right, on Friday. So Stretch is getting more and more compelling. Stretch should go back up. Whenever Stretch goes back up, whenever it reaches 100, he's never going to let it go to 100, 0.2. It gets to 100, 0.1, he prints. Saylor's going to print Stretch. That's the theory. That's the main engine behind the machine. And we also have more bullishness coming out for the long-term investor. Are we going to have 4 wonderful years of Kevin Hassett, which, from what I understand, is a very dovish person? Kevin Dove. I'm going to call him Kevin Dove. Are we going to have 4 years? From what I understand, he's been doing a lot of very dovish speeches. So get ready for the rate cuts. Get ready for the rate cuts May 2026. And we're going to have the end of the bluff, the end of the Fed bluff that we can maintain the rates this high. That bluff is going to end in the United States, finally. Japan is slowly finding out that bluff hurts, right? Japan is in a world of hurt because their central bank is bluffing as well. But Japan will go back to zero too. They don't have a choice. Governments don't have a choice. Unless, of course, you tell me we want to cut Social Security. Then, yeah, I suppose. We could stop Social Security. We could stop entitlements. We could cut in half the military. And then I suppose it would only take one 1929 style depression to save the dollar. I suppose, right? You got to cut everything and raise taxes to like 70 or 80% if you want to avoid a recession altogether, which would create a recession. Anyways, there's no way out. There's no way out. 0% rate cuts is what's going to happen. There is no way out. It is all a bluff. There is too much money in the system. Sorry, it's not I guess it's a macro rant, but when I started this channel, I thought it would be mostly a macro channel, but it ended up, beat the denominator. That was because of macro, but it ended up, taking more of the direction of a stock channel, which I love. I love that it's a stock channel. But anyways, let's celebrate. Let's finish it up. Bitcoin itself is bouncing back right now. Bitcoin is bouncing back. Gamblers got hurt. 50 XRs, 100 XRs. On hyperliquid, they got liquidated, they're exiting, they're gone. Maybe they'll come back if they get a paycheck today, I don't know. But Bitcoin dumped, institutions are buying, and maybe it's going to take us a few days to get back to the 90,000s. But next Sunday night, if that happens again, don't be surprised, because it's like 8 or 9 Sunday nights out of 10, this is what happens. Until we get the Clarity Act, this is what's going to happen. So anyways, I'm very bullish on the stock still, and I'm very happy with the performance today. Amazing reversal. I don't know if it's a sign of a squeeze. That's why I put squeeze in there. I don't know if it's any signs of that, but anyways, it sure squeezed on the day, and that was beautiful. So this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on X, follow me on Patreon. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.